Hi, my name is Elizabeth from Art at Home Gallery in Balmain. We've got the Colours of Movement exhibition, which runs until the 5th of March by Julianne Allcorn. I hope you enjoy the exhibition.
I think I'd like to start with New Guinea, because I was born in Rabaul, New Guinea. I had my first 11 years there prior to going to boarding school. And the first forms of dance that I saw were the duk-duks, and they're the spirit men that come in at dawn across the canoes, and they dance for the villagers, and then they go into the bushes. They take the duk-duk's headdress off, and they come out so that the children don't know who the spirit men are, and they are actually the elders of the village. And that happens, I think, every full moon. I'm not quite sure, but it's a very vivid memory that I have as a child, with the duk-duks and the colour and the smell of a sing-sing in Rabaul. And then the inspiration actually for this exhibition is my teacher, former teacher, Miss Valérine Tweedy. She was the only ballerina taken into Ballet Russe when it came here to Australia, and she was 14 when she left Australia and danced with Ballet Russe. She came back, and after studying Shikheti, the Shikheti syllabi, she taught the Shikheti syllabi, and that's where she taught me and I became a Shikheti ballet teacher. Shikheti, here, Enrico Shikheti, was the ballet master for Ballet Russe, and this is him as Carabosse, which is the wicked fairy in the ballet The Sleeping Beauty, and this was his last performing role. And this was taken from a little sepia photograph that I found on the internet, and I just thought, he's so charismatic, and I didn't want to paint him as we see him in photographs as a ballet master, but as a performer. And when he was in Paris with Diaghilev and Ballet Russe, he met Gurdjieff. And Gurdjieff is a philosopher who travelled the Middle East and studied different movements, sacred movements, and put them to dance forms. And often the movements were taken from the weavers of the Turkish carpets. And he met Shikheti, and Shikheti and Diaghilev said, "May we use your movements in Ballet Russe?" And he said, "No, they're sacred movements, you cannot use my movements." But when you look at Massine's choreography, as Ballet Russe travelled, Massine's choreography is the Gurdjieff movements, and that's really quite amazing. My Gurdjieff teacher, I studied Gurdjieff dancing, went to see the last production of Australian ballet and nearly fell off her chair because she couldn't believe that the Gurdjieff movements were actually being performed by the Australian ballet. They weren't as earthy. Miss Tweedy actually danced the same ballets when she was young, and when she watched them on the dance by the Australian ballet, she said, no, they're not earthy enough, and they're not down and deep enough and strength, but they were very, very neat and calculated. And it's amazing to see the body actually take the same step and show a different energy. This painting here is one of Gurdjieff's movements. It's the 7 movements, or the 7 positions. And so when we learnt this step in class, Doreen, my teacher, said, if you write this down, you'll get a carpet. It'll make a carpet. So I went away and painted it. And when Miss Tweedy spoke at the opening, she said, this is notation in colour. This is movement. And that was very inspirational to me, that she actually recognised the essence of the painting, which is repeated over there, and then into the 4 senses of a dancer. So that's another representation. Yes, this is another representation of the same movements with different colour wave, and I'd like to, it's something I'd like to work on, using different colour waves, greens and purples and mauves, and maybe different movements, and put them onto canvas and see what comes out of that. But then we go to the 4 senses of a dancer: the ear, the hand, the touch, the foot, the eye, and the foot, meaning in that one I meant the pain of working on in a point shoe. And then we go further down, and from Sleeping Beauty, I felt I had to paint something that, when you say Sleeping Beauty, it's not just a fairy tale. There is a bond between a mother and a child, whether it's male or female. A child is beautiful when it sleeps, and the ballet brings that to life, I think. And then my three daughters' names are Persephone, Pierrette and Portia. I painted Pierrette in this piece. Pierrette, the other name for Pierrette is Columbine, and Columbine is the dancer in the ballet Le Carnival. Miss Tweedy danced Columbine in that role. I asked her in 1954 in Melbourne, and I asked her what type of dress did she wear, what was her costume made of. She was white, it's lace, and it's covered in cherries, which is why she's painted in that outfit. And Poirot loves Pierrette, and Pierrette knows, or Columbine knows, that she can have Poirot at any time, but Harlequin is much more fun, and that's what the ballet is about, and I just love that piece. The next one's Portia, and her name was taken from Shakespeare, Merchant of Venice, and the three boxes, the gold, silver and lead, and she, in the play, she has to choose one of them. And my daughter has eyes like that. So it's not an image of my daughter per se, but when my daughter looks at you and you're telling her something, you can actually see her think through her eyes, and I get that feeling when I look at that painting. My eldest daughter is Persephone, goddess of the underworld, and the flower she picks is Narcissus, which is the name of this painting. And Persephone is two people. She's the harvest of spring, so she's out there, she's alive, she's energetic, she's wonderful. And then there's this dark side which actually challenges everything in your body, in society. She's a gypsy. And then, of late, this is the last painting I worked on. I actually study also heritage dancing, which is 14th, 15th, 16th, 17th, 18th, 19th century dance. And in 2004, I was actually part of Outback House. We were the squatter family on the ABC Outback House. So we lived in those costumes for 3 months at Oxy Downs outside Dubbo with no 21st century amenities whatsoever. And to dance and work and dress in a crinoline, 9 layers, is a feat. It takes 20 minutes to get dressed and 10 to 15 minutes to get undressed. But to move in it and dance in it is very magical. You feel like a princess. And that's what this painting is about. It's being made to feel very special in the clothes that you wear. And when you have a partner that can dance and turn you and lead you, you are special. This is me in Outback House in full dress. And that's my husband. So we did dress in those clothes. When we went into the show, we walked into a paddock and a big marquee. We were told to strip, take off our 21st century clothes, and we were put into 19th century clothes. So we actually couldn't try and cheat with knickers. We had to wear what they wore and use the influence that they used, and it was very constricting. But what it did give me, it gave me a discipline to live in 1861 without things that we take for granted: running water, a tap, heating. We had to light everything. It was a very physical thing, and if you didn't have something, you don't miss it. You actually learn to live without and appreciate what you actually need and what is around you, and that is what I like in today. This painting, I actually went to the Australian Ballet. David McAllister allowed me into the Australian Ballet at the Opera House to trace and photograph dancers. And this is a painting based for the competition, The Gathering, where you have to show Indigenous and non-Indigenous working together and where it has succeeded. So this painting displays where the two companies, Bangarra Dance Theatre and the Australian Ballet, meet at the Opera House, which is at Bennelong Point. The first Aboriginal that actually went to England and was the go-between between the two cultures was Bennelong. And Bennelong found it, was the go-between. But where the two cultures actually come together and where we came was across the sea. So I painted the dancers actually in the waters, which is how our two cultures would have come to Australia or Gondwana land as we know it. But she has the Aboriginal flag on, he has the Australian flag on, and the Opera House is on his back. And that's the movement of colour and the sea that surrounds the Opera House. So it's the coming together of the two cultures. And I'm working on another painting as well, which has an Aboriginal dancer and a non-Indigenous dancer from the Australian Ballet School. And I've painted their bodies with two other artists and had it photographed, and we're going to put that on canvas. And then we go back to New Guinea. And this is a very special area. This is the duk-duks actually coming across in the canoes. But one of my greatest friends is Diana Cleveland, and we know her as Hattie. Hattie was born in Rabaul, on the islands of Nuku'ria, which are little atoll islands. She was taken at the age of 5 to boarding school down to Melbourne. Freezing, hated it, could only speak pidgin English, begged her father to dance. And he said, no, you can't dance. Dancing is not for ladies. At the age of 12, she took her first ballet lesson. At the age of 14, she was in Borovansky Ballet, which became the Australian Ballet. She's 83, as is Miss Tweedy. So they actually didn't ever meet, but those women are the most inspirational women in dance in my life. And if I can move and talk and be creative at 83, I've had the best time. And these are some of the masks, the duk-duks. And we learnt hula dancing on Nuku'ria, as did Hattie, as a child. So I actually visited her islands growing up in New Guinea.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
So where did you learn to paint?
I studied at Shillito Design School, and Peter Travis was my colour teacher. Peter Travis is also 83, he's just got an OBE I think, or an OAM. He was the man who wrote the colour theory with Phyllis Shillito, but he was the man who designed our swimsuit, the men's Speedo, and he started the Kite Festival. And he is a very inspirational man. Very frightening when, as a girl aged 15, 16 at art school, but I wouldn't have this ability to use colour with no fear without that training.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
The unseen art scene came into my life through the Art Gallery of New South Wales. I picked it up. And I absolutely loved it because it was about female artists and not mainstream. It was more off the beaten track artists with really unusual eclectic artworks. And as I was reading through it, I thought, oh, Jane Wood was involved in this, which is a surprise because we've done a coffee break together. So all the more reason I had to have this book. And the reason I loved it was because it was focusing on Australian women being creative, and it wasn't about women taking the back seat while their husbands were creative. Like, I think Brett Whiteley was an example of that, and Einstein was an example of that too. His wife was the intelligent one, but Einstein got all the credit. So I love this book because it's about women, how they're creative, and I also go as far as cooking programs. All the men are getting the credit in cooking when it's not the woman's job, but the woman knows how to cook. It gets handed down from mother to daughter, but that all gets lost in translation, so to speak. So this book isn't translated, it is what it is. It's about women, female artists, and their wonderful work, and they're not pushed aside by a male. Here we go. She was one artist when I was flicking at the beginning of the book at the art gallery, and I just simply turned the page and I was instantly taken by Pomegranate and Peace Bird. It is colourful, definitely off the beaten track, and quite eclectic, saying a lot about, I'm not one to analyse the artwork, but it instantly spoke to me on all levels of, you know, the hand taking over society, you know, peace with birds, and you know, peace for women more than anything. But these two images really stood out to me, and that's just a taste of the fabulous artworks that need to be seen by all these female artists. Do you want to see other pages? Sir Callanan's another one. Iron Coats, again with charcoal, the beast. Funny that, we turn on the beast. So there's just a lot, and it's a little testimony of each artist. So they talk a little bit about themselves, their influences, and the outcome of their work. Published in 1995. So, and I only just got this book within the year, probably sometime last year, end of last year. So it's great that it's still around, and what an honour to have it in the Art Gallery of New South Wales. And it's very reasonably priced too.
I'm in Thank you so much. Caroline, please. What do I do with this? I'll hold it farther.
Good. I just am so excited about today, and I'm sure that all the other artists involved in the book and people who've put in help and just wonderful, the way it's come together has really just been beautiful. It's had its trials and tribulations, but today we're all celebrating and we're just thrilled. And it's just wonderful to see you all here, and friends and important people like Lynne and Eva, who are going to talk later. I'm really, I suppose, just opening and saying how nice it is to see you all here. And I will introduce our first speaker, who is Lynne Spender. She's the Executive Director of the Australian Society of Authors. And she apparently, her first book was a book that was about, called The Unpublished Heritage. And it was a similar book to what we are launching today. And it was about unseen women authors. So that was Lynne's first book, but she's written many since then, and she is edited about 30. Is that right? So I'll give you Lynne. Thank you.
I did prepare a talk for today based on the fact that I was going to speak as the second person to speak. And so I actually started off my talk with my story is a different one. But as I'm the first person to speak, I suppose I should spend a little bit more time explaining my role in this absolutely amazing book that we're here to celebrate today. I don't know very much about art. I have very few pretensions about art. And usually you follow that with except I know what I like. And mine is except I know that if it's done by women, I'll probably like it. However, I do, after 3 years of working with the Australian Society of Authors as its executive director, know quite a bit about the dramas associated with getting a book published.
Of course, I forgot to state the obvious, and that was to thank Jan, Wood and Carol and Ambrose for actually having the idea to have this book and to have the confidence to go ahead with it. It would never have happened but for their dream, I suppose. And I also wanted to thank a lot of people who have given help with getting the printing done. Tina Bridge, Anne and Usha, Anne Flanagan and Usha Hellman, who've organised today, and Leslie Dimmick gave us her mailing list from Tap Gallery. And it's really a bit dicey to start saying thank you, because so many people have put in their creativity, their money, their energy, and so it's thanks to all of you who have contributed to the success. And now, Eva, can you take over from Lynne? And Eva has also just published a book called Leading Women, and a book on the Boyer Lectures, which is about a truly civil society. So you going to explain that?
In one easy word or two easy words, yes. I mean, I brought copies of these with me because basically I want to read a piece out of this one because it's very relevant about the birth of this particular show. But I suppose, I mean, the reason that I'm still sort of carrying around copies of A Truly Civil Society is I think it came very much out of my feminism. I wrote it because, I started writing it because I was seriously concerned about the fact that we don't have very many women in leadership roles, and because the word leadership itself often meant for women something they didn't want to get involved in. And I must say that the origins of this particular show, I can still remember Jan and Carol saying, oh, we're going to put together a book, and I said, oh, look, this is really hard, you know. How are you going to do it, and so on. And so here we are, what is it, 2 years later? Not quite 2 years later. 2.5. Is it 2.5? 2.5. All right, I lost a year in the process. From the time that first art show happened. Now, that first art show happened in a building which housed Distaff Associates, but also housed the Women's Academy and various other enterprises.
This is my mother, who arrived in Australia in 1949. She has the third generation granddaughter now, Talia, and my mother always encouraged me to follow my interest in painting and drawing. She used to draw me little pictures when I was a girl, little icons, little images, and I think a lot of my artistic talent comes from my mother. She was a great actress in her time. And in the book I write a lot about my background, more so than about my art, because I think that there are two sides. There's the social side, and I think the book is a social document about what's happening in Australia in the 1990s.